Greetings, my fellow free philosophical thinkers. This is L3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Thursday, June 15th, 2017. Yes, it is a quiet evening along the New River, Fort Lauderdale. And I decided to do another episode here for the heck of it. It's just interesting, too, about three more attorneys were murdered in the South Florida district of Debbie Wiseman Schultz's jurisdiction, I would say. A lot of distractions are happening there, but I want to focus on those areas. However, I like to really talk about what can be occurring. There's some opinions in here and certain reports, and what we can do as individuals for not participating in about the so-called civil war that the people were talking about with the left and the right, all that stuff, which I am real convinced is nothing more than manufactured. And if you know my episode from last night about the shooter Hogginson, they claim he was an FBI asset. And remember this, many of these individuals are actually on the Fed's payroll. Just be a big list. Just look it up. You'll be very surprised. And many of this does have a lot of merit. And of course, talk about Representative Scaly shot for exposing global elite's child trafficking ring. There's a claim on that as well. We don't know the whole entire story, but one thing for sure, everyone needs to start looking at the broader perspective of what's occurring instead of saying about, oh, this person was against gay marriage and this and that. I'm like, you know what? That's more of just bickering than ever before. You think federalizing marriages is a great solution? It's called centralization, and a license is nothing more than a commercial law. A marriage should be a right, natural-born right, not a so-called privilege, which you have to have a commercial license, which is approved by competent authority. Any questions, look up marriage license under Black's Law Dictionary, okay? However, we'll just look on here. This is Burt Rant Daily Report. It's entitled America's Civil War is in Free Fall, which is before it's news.com. And basically before it's news.com, anyone could post stuff. So it's more of an open platform. Everyone can say, oh, it's false information, disinformation. No, it's just an open platform. Anyone can participate and throw stuff in there. And, interesting here about Yellowstone, moderate earthquake at Yellowstone, Montana, moderate earthquake in Chalma, Chile. And some of China's richest, most powerful men have mysteriously vanished. Okay, that's on Before It's News. So let's just check this out here. This is by Captain T. Dave Burt Rand, who is retired. Is this the Liberty Movement at a breaking point for an all-out civil war? D.C. shooting that injured 4 and now has Representative Steve Scalzi, Republican from Louisiana, in critical care after being shot by a radicalized Democrat, has boosted the far-left deep state agenda for war in America, while the mainstream liberal Dems are quickly coming to terms about their involvement with the Democratic Party. The danger as we Americans face is more dangerous than any time in our country's history. Rhino trader John McCain announced that America was better off with Obama. He is rubbing the sores created by the socialist commies that infiltrated and now control corporate fake stream news, not to mention the political hacks themselves and those in the CIA, FBI, and on the streets radicalizing college professors and the anti-Trump movement. The critical left have been exposed over and over again of the Hillary Clinton felonies and the real Russian collusion, while creating a ruse against President Trump in order to bog down Congress with a diversion. In the meanwhile, A.G. Sessions is weak at best and not doing anything to stop the nonsense that can take us into a civil war. President Trump is allowing the Dems and fake stream media to overturn his administration every single day, while scumbags like Pelosi, Maxine Waters, et al. Encourage violence and an uprising this summer. They want war, and it's coming because, like a dog in a cage being poked at with a stick, the dog will come out fighting when the cage door opens. The far left are pushing and encouraging violence against Christian conservatives and the liberty movement that only want to make America great again, but are far more obsessed with the reality of losing the election. There is no doubt in my mind that Dems are creatively pushing for an assassination of Donald Trump, not by the CIA as their last choice, but by their own radicalized morons that feel they have a right to proceed without consequences. You can bet on the fact that Dems are tickled that one of their own was halfway successful when the attempted assassination of Republicans at a baseball game, while at the same time hoping for a radical right moron to do the same at a Democratic event while doubling up on their gun-grabbing rhetoric with President Trump as the instigator. People like Kathy Griffin holding the fake head of Donald Trump and the fake extreme media pushing the narrative that there's nothing wrong with the Shakespeare show in the park depicting Trump as Caesar, brutally killed on stage as free speech is actually hate speech. The Antifa thugs continue to label any and all Trump supporters, therefore, in their feeble minds, violence is necessary. Well, here's a news flash. You will get what you want, and the dogs on the right will be unleashed, and America will fall into the pits of hell as a result. But at the end of the day, the radical left will lose. All Americans need to wake up fast, and those liberals on the fence need to choose a side. We are divided by design, and the leaders on both sides are encouraging a civil war in order to destroy America. Build up the police state, reduce the country into a state of poverty, take our property, restrict our travels, create a one-party system just short of a dictatorship, and confiscate all weapons. This is a prerequisite for a one-world government for the globalists to have unfettered access to all resources and property around the world. America is a holdout, unlike all the other countries conquered via internal civil wars by design. America is there now. I know many do not fathom martial law in America. As for us in the liberty movement, we are vulnerable under Obama, and we should have been again under Hillary Clinton. Unfortunately, because of deep state, socialists, communists, and all agencies being prompted by political leaders on both sides of the aisle, we are still in the same boat. However, the President Trump does not have many choices, and AG Sessions is doing nothing while focusing on American marijuana and allowing the kangaroo congressional investigation to proceed without intervention. Martial law will happen, or President Trump will be assassinated. The Trump administration must get aggressive with those that want to destroy this country, shut down these investigations, and begin the process of locking up Comey, Lynch, Clintons, and have the FBI go after Antifa, etc. Yes, President Trump will be further vulnerable to a CIA assassination, but if he does nothing, as it appears now, many thousands of Americans will die in the streets this summer, especially if Trump is assassinated. America is in a free fall, and the bottom isn't very pretty. Okay, so what he's actually directing is just a lot of stuff is occurring still. And this is not right, which even myself is very critical in some of these certain Republicans, even Scalzi as well. And I say that based on his actions. And I was very vocal on that last night. So, and what's really occurring is more, I am real convinced this is done by design. It's a one world order agenda. And anyone participating in this mission are nothing more than pawns of the game, which they will spit you out and toss you like pieces of garbage or used condom or tampon. All right, this is how I look at it, and people need to start contemplating for themselves. So, and under here about this little brief here, which you can read it, the rest of it on the World Net Daily, World Net Daily exclusive. Michael Savage predicted violence by marginals day before attack.
we're at a boiling point. There's going to be a civil war. I know what is coming, and it's going to get worse, he said, pointing to his book, 2014 book, To Stop the Coming Civil War. Savage said in the book's first chapter, he shows how former First Lady Michelle Obama, former Attorney General Eric Holder, and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi were inciting the division of classes at commencement speeches. He writes on pages 4 and 5 of the book, why would these people put forth the message of class and racial division to graduating college seniors on the same weekend, with Pelosi further telling her audience to go out and become disruptors? Why do they do it? I'm telling you, they're setting the stage for more confrontations between citizens of the United States and their government. On page 252 of the book, he writes, not since the run-up to the Civil War has the nation been more divided. The battle lines have been drawn, the haves and against the have-nots, the illegal aliens against hardworking middle-class families, liberals who hate the Second Amendment versus lawful gun owners, climate activists whose policies cause forest fires and exacerbate drought against those who understand the effect of human activity is negligible, anti-Christian communists, educators against God-fearing families, Republicrats against patriots. Savage said in his monologue Wednesday that all the rhetoric about Trump is about keeping the president from accomplishing an agenda that is dismantling everything Obama put in place. What do the Dems do right away? Jump on gun control, he said, referring to Democratic Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe remarks at the scene of the attack Wednesday. It's almost Pavlovian. Someone gets shot and they want to grab guns. This is more than that. This blood is on their hands, Savage said. And you can read the rest of it. There's a link on there as well. You can really see it for yourself. And that's all it is, my friends. It's nothing more than Mind Control 101 Club of Rome platform. This is why you have to always be vigilant, question, and think before jumping on the high horse on face value, because they don't want you to know about the fine print. And this is a little bit long too, so you folks can read this yourselves. Because one thing I know for sure, it's an inside job, and I can say that in good faith, because the two big mistakes they made, and I'm going to repeat this long enough, of the new millennium, 9/11 and the murder of William Cooper. So we're just roaming, just hanging out. Some folks just walking by, and this is why you have to examine things more thoroughly and prep yourself and protect the so-called war on terror. Fight the war on terror by defending our U.S. Bill of Rights culture. So, and unfortunately, I tried to do this video here. This is by Kurt Nemo, and he made a thing about there will be blood, the Alexandria shooting, and the Civil War in America that came out yesterday. And as it reads here, the state will exercise its monopoly of violence and terror. It's defending the characteristic of the modern state. All right? The end game is an authoritarian police and surveillance state. So it's more of a Big Brother platform, 1984 narrative, which, of course, Orson Welles has warned us since 1948. So we will continue on here. A shooting at a Republican baseball practice in Virginia should come as a surprise, is the result of months of establishment agitprop, from Kathy Griffin posing with Trump's severed head to a Trump-like Julius Caesar killed in Central Park play. The media has fixated on strife between the two establishment parties. This isn't an accident. It's designed to keep Americans distracted from each other's throats as the economy slowly implodes and the war expands with horrific toll. So, I'm going to stop there for the moment. So if the economy implodes and they're going to blame it all on President Trump, don't buy the hype. Regardless if you like the president or not. It's just a more way of distracting us for the bigger mission that they want to control us like peasants. All right. So continue on here. The election of Trump provides a great opportunity to create partisan battle lines. Social media rife and with venom and with hatred as the alt left faces off against the alt right. Factions are established and receive support behind the scenes from George Soros, the Koch brothers, and the Democrat resistance. Not resisting enough, to be exact. They're more like posers, as far as I'm concerned. A ludicrous moniker cooked up by the Democratic National Committee under its new chairman, Tom Perez. The DNC announced it will throw $1 million as a summer of resistance. This will further widen the political divide. Polarization is increasingly intense, and the establishment propaganda media is fanning the flames. Violence is escalating. Antifa leftists attack Trump supporters, and they respond in kind. Activists are now openly carrying weapons. We're in the early stage of an engineered civil war. In other words, an antebellum. Who benefit from this? The state. It's a classic example of problem, reaction, solution. Create political violence or exploit that which is already festering, then unleash an authoritarian and militarized response. Last year, a report by government watchdog group tracked the weapons expenditures of the federal government and found nearly $1.5 billion in military-style equipment, purchases of 67 of its non-military agencies, including the IRS and the EPA. The federal government is preparing for civil unrest. The Pentagon is strategizing a response to a large-scale civil unrest, not only in America, but around the world. It began looking into this in 2008 after the engineered financial crisis. In 2013, it was reported the Homeland Security engaged in a massive covert military buildup. The DHS has purchased 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition, enough to sustain an Iraq-sized war for over 20 years. And I remember reading about that, and man, the articles around 2006 or 7, I would say. All right, DHS has also acquired heavily armored tanks, which have been seen roaming the streets. The state will exercise a monopoly of violence and terror. Its defining characteristics of the modern state. The end game is an authoritarian police and surveillance state. As the Nazi Hermann Goering knew, the people can always be brought to the bidding of their leaders as they respond to political violence. He said it is always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it's a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Yeah, comes to tyranny, comes from all different avenues. Remember, my friends, it's government. As an operative for Operation Gladio pointed out, in order to establish a police state, innocent civilians must be attacked and killed to force the public to turn to the state and demand greater security. Now that so-called progressive, a Bernie Sanders volunteer, has shot up Republicans playing baseball, how long before Congress introduced yet another draconian law in response? Now that the political class has been targeted, it probably won't take long. So remember this, my friends. This is part of the One World Order platform. When will many of them out there, not just my listeners, but many of them out there will learn? Stop playing the puss-ass partisan politics. It's for the meek and the pathetic. George Washington warned us about this in his farewell address. Look it up, read it, instead of bickering about it to me. Furthermore, we need to talk to each other as honorable folks. Get rid of the Jim Jones syndrome. Government in Latin, once again, means control of the mind. They don't give a damn about any single one of us, including our worst enemies. If you don't support freedom, including your enemies, and let them be deprived, you just create a presence for yourself. I'm paraphrasing that by Thomas Paine. So, this is the bottom line. We have to resist this at all costs. Not by this state-funded, dumbed-down funded resistance group, because they're not controversial enough. Okay, next one here talks about, is by Sam Rowley, Personal Liberty. Liberalism is a mental disorder. This isn't the last bloodshed that will come from preying on weak minds. Donald Trump is a fascist, and he's leading a party that works every day to make poor poorer and the sick sicker. Off with their heads. They won't admit it outright, but this is the not-so dog whistle messaging we've been hearing and seeing from the left wing of the American political sphere for months. Leftist politicians and the Democratic leadership have played big focus on courting voters separate from severe mental illness by clinical diagnosis alone. And while the Democrats like to pretend that they're focused on fringe elements, the desperate, the sexually confused, the depraved, and the unwilling to accept personal responsibility from any form is the caring thing to do. It is simply an exercising and utilizing the useful idiots among us to maximum effect. And we saw, and as we all saw on Wednesday, it's a perilous wager. James Hogginson, the sick bastard who opened fire on congressional Republicans as he practiced for a charity game of America's pastime in Alexandria, Virginia, Wednesday, is not an anomaly. Like thousands of Americans, I found myself browsing his Facebook page shortly after committing his heinous crime. A famous Bernie Sanders supporter, Hogginson belonged to an element of our society who find themselves perpetually disenfranchised by a machine working against them. Of course, I didn't know him, but a few things I gathered about the psychopath as I read Facebook and a handful of news profiles. He wasn't a smart man. He owned a business that wasn't doing so well. He followed politics, but he only accepted leftist truths. And for that reason, he held only a few strong beliefs about conservative Americans. They're assholes. They're racist. They're misogynist bigots. They care only about big business, guns, and keeping immigrants at bay. For Hogginson, President Trump was the biggest asshole of them all. I want to say, Mr. President, for being an asshole, you are the truly biggest asshole we have ever had in the Oval Office. Hogginson said in one post buried between call to action petitions for leftist causes. An indictment, sure, it wasn't just like hundreds of others he made against various Republican leaders, reasoned, fact-based, and well thought out, not so much. It bears noting again that fellow Capitol Police dispatched to hell on Wednesday wasn't a smart man. Unfortunately, the left is encouraging people like Hogginson to act out. They're being told to fight, that the GOP government is against them. The only way their lives will improve, Democrats says, is doing away with Republicans. Yeah, like, our gang is better than yours. That's called Plutocracy 101. For too long, Americans have allowed to fester a coddling of the most weak-minded and weak-willed segments of our society. No longer do we accept that man's earthly endeavors will forever unfold alongside an unending and ultimately unwinnable battle with nature. We've allowed to lie to premate our society and to become accepted as a universal truth. That is, that all of life's problems are caused by outside factors, specifically by people whose will to conquer nature as long as they physically can is stronger than those whose luck is better than our own. There is no survival of the fittest. There is no luck. If you aren't white and life isn't going too well, a white person is keeping you down. If you're a woman failing to reach personal goals, a man is pushing you around. If you're homosexual having a hard time, it's because the breeders want to see you fail. It's no longer even acceptable to blame biology if you believe that you were born with the wrong parts and feel weird walking around. You're simply a victim of mass misunderstanding of a scientifically unapprovable physical malfunction. Just last week, a man who felt like a woman shot up a Philadelphia grocery store because of a cartoon made him hate everyone. The lady goddess was guiding his hand. There is no need to go into great detail retelling the story. It was a simple case of severe mental illness. The only important thing is to note that it is the day prior to the shooting, thanks to leftist policies, that mentally ill freak could have been featured in a viral post by any number of leftist outlets. Cartoon helps women find peace with being born transgender, the applauding headline must say. For society to find itself in a such strange place requires an idyllic misremembering the whole human history. There has never been a time since the dawn of man that human beings haven't been tortured by a natural predisposition for vice, idleness, selfishness, and all manner of other antisocial traits. But until now, there never was a time when capitulation was an acceptable remedy. Not a single person ready this can honestly say that they have never had a perverse thought or acted in an uncivil manner because of our inherited human weakness. If you're a religious person, you believe that divine creator provided human beings a set of instructions that, when followed and amassed, allow for societal harmony and eternal life. If you aren't, you can at least admit that religious virtue do more good than harm throughout human history in terms of allowing humans to set aside primitive urges long enough to build great societies. No killing, no taking other people's stuff. Do not do things that hasten the spread of disease. Help yourself, and when possible, help those who are unable. You are who you are. Deal with it, survive, move on. Nature is trying to kill you. No system is perfect, and the often populations have found themselves gripped by zealotry. Applying those ideas in a way that causes vast human suffering, that's vice. But a great society has never existed without first building on those virtues. Today, left has created a new religion, one that exists for no other reason than to tear down any of those remaining virtues in its interest of political power. People don't work hard and self-control, and we're naturally inclined to look for the easiest and most pleasurable modes of survival. Those modes don't lend well to success. They never have. The politics of victimhood seeks support from those failing in life. Many of those are not doing well because of self-control deficits. The problem is that are also many Americans doing poorly because of severe mental disease. Democratic messaging reaches both groups. Republicans are keeping you down. Big business is keeping you down. The president's keeping you down. High-profile Democrats like Loretta Lynch, Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton celebrities, and many in Congress talk about great fear and the need for resistance against the wealthy, against successful, against the traditional. A comedian has mocked beheading of the president. Leftist politicians praise destruction brought by anti-fascist protesters. They never provide an answer to the problems plaguing the people who can't achieve in modern society. Inner city communities under Democratic control only get worse. Young anti-fascists in liberal cities can only see their jobs prospect diminish, and the mentally ill, many of them who don't understand why behind the misery only see targets. The left claims that there's massive violent right-wing movement in the USA today, but the army of the confused leftists is far more troubling. It is not the right-wing extremism and mental illness that doesn't exist, but the right isn't actively calling for violence and uprisings. The right isn't preaching perpetual victimhood and hopelessness. The left argues that the right, even as the President Trump, preaches hate. They argue that it will lead to violence against minorities. But if you look at the headlines in the past couple of years, it is the right that has grown increasingly unruly and unreasonable. And the things are only going to get worse as the Democratic Party continues to push the myth that conservatives stole the presidential election. This is like a little child's game, believe the world should revolve around them. Okay? this is pure hypocrisy. All right. If you folks remember during the Clinton administration when Billy Boy signed that so-called crime bill, more African Americans were arrested in prison for drug crimes, and they served a lot longer sentences. The left is using you folks. The tyrants, the manipulators, the Jim Joneses. Now, I'm not saying I'm ultra-right, anything like that. I'm just giving you the damn truth. People like Loretta Lynch and Barack Obama, based on their actions, they support the Strong Cities Network. They're pro-New World Order, too. This is what you got to look out for, my friends. Don't be a parrot. Be a critic. Call these folks out. I'm not just saying just the left, but even people, tyrannical politicians in general. So don't be manipulated. What the hell you guys been doing on the internet? Just watching garbage all your life? You don't do your homework? There's lots of information out there. You got library on your lap. Use it. Observe responsibly. Don't just go after face value. And of course, you never, ever trust the government, period. What about these elections, presidential elections? Everyone's looking for that Lord and Savior. You're in the wet. It's nothing more than a wet dream. And now look what happened. Everyone's angry. They're pissed off. They're listening to their heroes like Madonna and all these stupid, pathetic Hollywood actors and actresses that never know about, they never even probably study geopolitics in their entire life. It's going to give you advice and say, that guy's a fascist. Please, don't buy it. Don't get caught in that mindset. It's like saying, they mind a lot of people in the beginning. They attack the government freedom. They're like, okay, I'll sell my ass to you. God bless the Patriot Act. That's what the week's about. Don't follow the herd. And next one here came from Kurt Nemo again. Came out today. The Liberty movement is on life support. As it reads, the so-called Liberty movement is dead. Well, not dead, but on life support. There are hundreds of websites covering issues that matter, while the Fox Liberty movement is busy doing battle with their ideological polar opposite, the alt-left, for lack of a better name. For instance, alt-right journalist Michael Chernovic asked back in May during the White House press conference why the government is not doing anything about violence by the left. Chernovic retweeted his original tweet after Representative Steve Scalzi was shot during a baseball game in Virginia this week, or practice to be exact. There's a video on there, a minute and 13 seconds long. Check it out. It says here, after today's press briefing was complete, journalists asked about political violence by the left. Real journalism, finally. That's his tweet. This is a valid question, of course, and it has a simple answer. Anybody engaged in violence for any reason, with the exception of self-defense, should be arrested and prosecuted. It doesn't matter if the person is in question is an Antifa goon or a criminal assaulting people and stealing their money. This common sense approach is or little used to the alt-right as it continues to engage in a running battle with the so-called leftists. The left-right paradigm used by the elite to control the political landscape and make meaningful change impossible came back into play like gangbuster after Trump was elected. Trump Baldwin hit the nail square on the head. Ever since Trump won the Republican nomination, and even more so since he won the general election, it seems we are right back to the old Republican and Democrat, left versus right, liberal versus conservative mentality that got us into this mess in the first place. It is to point that major patriot radio talk show hosts are sounding more and more like Republican hacks such as Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. And the so-called patriot websites seem to have lost their constitutional objectivity as well when it comes to Trump. He's right. This has divided and marginalized the real liberty movement. It is a trick that seems to work without fail. Recall what the elite did to Ron Paul when he ran for president, or when the Tea Party movement was hijacked and turned into a cheering section for the Republican Party. The same subterfuge worked for Trump. He talked about ending wars, putting the squeeze on the Federal Reserve, rolling back NAFTA, and other global schemes designed to strip the mine America and drain the so-called swamp in Washington. After he was elected, he expanded the wars, said Janet Yellen was doing a heck of a job, and signaled that he wants to renegotiate NAFTA, not deep six it. Trump packed his administration with CFR operatives and handed the Treasury over to Goldman Sachs and the bankers. His top economic advisor is a former Goldman Sachs crony. The alt-right does not talk about this, or if they do, it is a little more than a rhetorical exercise. Instead, they concentrate on attacking the left. It's become an obsession. Are leftists more of a threat than the international bankster cartels and the forever war state? Hardly. The Liberty Movement was kicked to the curb the day Trump entered the White House. It has slid back into its ghetto after making substantial progress during the reign of Obama and the Democrats. The alt-right dominates the news and social media. The radio talk show host is allude to above has betrayed the Liberty Movement and sold it down the river. It was naive to believe a billionaire casino hotel magnate with zero experience in geopolitics and the Byzantine inner workings of the corporate state should drain the swamp. The Liberty Movement is now in an untenable situation. Back Trump and hope against immense odds for the best, or step back and pick up where it left off before he was elected. That state saying, the more things change, the more it stays the same. This is why, my friends, I'll say it again, I've been extremely vigilant during this presidential election. You gotta pick one or the other or you won't be my friend. Well, look what happened. I've been vindicated once again. This is why I tell everyone, start from the bottom. Plant the seed, not no tree. In other words, make liberty happen on a local level instead of going to Washington, D.C. 10th Amendment movements, nullification. Even say, stick it, my natural born right, supersede your pathetic referendums, rules, and regulations. Stop playing partisan politics. You're all being duped once again. That's one thing you have to really look deep into, including examining yourselves, and including me as well. Always stay vigilant, my friends. Finally, Know What and Why had a real cool article, and it's really neat, I would say. It says here, political violence is never the answer. U.S. Representative Steve Scalzi, a congressional staffer, a lobbyist, and several Capitol Police officers were the victims of yet another senseless act of violence perpetrated in the United States. Scalzi and the lobbyists are currently in critical condition. This incident reminds us that politicians are not immune from violence that is so commonplace in the United States. There have been numerous assassination attempts against elected officials, including sitting presidents. Some of them were successful, the most famous being the murders of Abraham Lincoln and President John F. Kennedy. Law enforcement are still investigating, but early reports indicate that the perpetrator, James Hogginson, who died from wounds suffered during the shootout, was a Bernie Sanders supporter. He apparently had a lengthy arrest record and was recently seen firing a high-powered rifle outside his home. We don't want to jump to any conclusions about the motive of this individual, but it is clear that tensions are high in the U.S. right now. Many see President Trump and the agenda he is pushing is an existential threat. Many Trump voters perhaps felt the same way about Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. We here at Who, What, Why know that our readers come from all different political stripes and may have differing views on gun control. But we want to take this opportunity to promote our belief in nonviolence as a moral principle. We also happen to believe it is the most effective means of generating political change, no matter which side of the aisle you are on. The individual who perpetrated this crime will have done grave harm to his side. We thought it appropriate to share this video of Martin Luther King Jr. speaking on the subject of nonviolence. It's like 8 minutes long, and it's a really good video. Dr. King, nonviolence is the most powerful weapon. Remember what happened in the 60s, my friend? If a lot of you may have been through it, witnessed it, or studied it. Quiet riot, Dr. King used to say. Resist peacefully. Now we got technology. It can make waves. And in reality it is. Even with the Liberty Movement, it has its bumps on the road, but we still inspire many more individuals. So this is absolutely essential. I believe in using force when it's necessary. Don't get me wrong. But shouldn't be the first thing. Everything's got to be Sun Tzu material. Methodical. Petition. Spread the word. Do it with finesse. Yes, I admit my time like it really hyped up on my shows. That's okay. It's just human nature. But I always try to value my principles and share this with every single one of you who are listening. We don't need to go out there beating people up. Let's all have these discussions. Someone asked me one time about how we stop racism. You know what I say? What we're doing right now. Talking as individuals. Natural-born people. Sharing information with love and respect. That's how you make impact. Inspire people. Not change them, but have them better ourselves as the human race. And I gotta say one thing. People say he was an alleged commie and all that, but you know what? Dr. King made waves. And any of us can do the same. And that is it, my friends. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting you may want to know, or maybe you may like, whatever you do, please send your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, Minds.com, FutureClub.net, Patreon.com/LookALook3rd, and I said Scene.life. Yeah. I guess that's really it. But look up LookALook3rd. I have other social media groups out there. In addition, you could email me at LookALook3, which is LookALook and a number 3 altogether at gmail.com, or you cryptotypes LookALook03, which are both numbers 0 and 3 altogether at protonmail.com. All right, folks. It's raining out here. Have my umbrella kicking by the bench, but I'm not getting wet. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.